All right, back settled in, ready to do some weekend videos. I've been schmoozing with the big boys in the trucking industry and representing the casual side of the business, casual attire. Everybody else went heavy on the business, but that's all right. So we'll look at the S&P 500, IWM, QQQ, financial sector, biotech sector, and the VIX, because we ended up last week giving ourselves, well, we didn't give ourselves, but the market gave us a beautiful 4-hour equilibrium. And I actually want to use SPY just to have some extended hours levels in there and just to see it a little bit more clear with a bit more data. So we had the high, low of the pullback, lower high, higher low, and then on Friday we ended up with a bull break. So the biggest takeaway for people newer watching these videos for technical analysis is being able to anticipate that this tightening range was the most likely scenario, and it told us what to be watching for pretty much the entire week. So again, knowing the most likely scenario on a broader, longer term time frame, and then zooming in and looking for the details. And there were instances where, say on Wednesday, where we dumped down and saw extreme RSI levels on shorter term time frames right towards support. There were bullish entries to be made from there. On Thursday, we had a rejection from resistance first thing in the morning. There were bearish entries to be made from there. So again, just having the scaffolding and the framework of the longer term time frames and then zooming in from there is very helpful. So we ended up with the bull break on Friday. Getting over 282.18 was a good sign. The next resistance is the highest price that we've seen from the December bounce, and that's 285.18. On Friday, we had the second highest close in 2019. All that being said, there are still a couple things that we need before the bulls are really comfortable that we're going to see continuation and then be looking at the all-time high after 280.60 back to SPX now. But we had a nice strong close, but we have to see the tech sector follow along, and we'll look at that in just a second. But we don't have a bull break on the 4-hour pattern for the tech sector just yet. So that's something that we have to be watching for on Monday and Tuesday, because if that does not get followed through and we do not get a tech sector bull break, that would be a red flag that we may be headed back down to test supports. So the most important thing for me this coming week is going to be for the bulls, there we go, to maintain the uptrend on the 4-hour time frame. So again, just back to SPY for more data. Anything on SPY above, I'm going to be using this low of Thursday of 279.07. Anything above that level keeps the 4-hour uptrend intact. So we can consolidate to start this coming week, but as long as we don't give up that level, we have to keep that uptrend, because again, seeing a bull break and then losing that 4-hour uptrend shortly after would certainly be another red flag for the bulls. IWM on the daily time frame also got some solid continuation, and on the 4-hour time frame, we can see the low, high of the bounce, higher low, bull break. We had a double top essentially on Thursday, and then on Friday with the bull break. So the most important support levels here, we have a support at 150.93. Anything above that is a higher low, and the bulls at the low of Friday trying to keep that little bit of an uptrend. So the daily time frame, you can see the little higher low and higher high, and the bulls are going to try and continue shifting this momentum to try and get that weekly chart back in favor of the bulls. We didn't consolidate at all on the way up. We're looking for a weekly higher low to be established. It's been a month of consolidation at this point, and there's no uptrend to lose here because we never established a higher low on the way up. So the bulls are hoping that 148.41 is our higher low. The fact that that little daily higher low and higher high already has taken place increases the odds that it is, and the most important resistance from here is 156.53 for the bulls to head back to the recent high. So here's QQQ on the 4-hour, and we can see that we have not made a bull break yet. So this is what we have to see happen on Monday or Tuesday. We have our high, low, lower high. We broke support and got no follow through, a 33-cent support break, and the bulls need a clear break of 180.69. Otherwise, a tightening 4-hour pattern is going to be forming to start this coming week. And if we cannot break 180.69 on Monday, we're going to look to pull back and form a higher low, perhaps in the 178, 179 range. So tech sector certainly on watch. If you look at the individual names like Amazon's a really nice 4-hour equilibrium, just tightening up. We're waiting for some clarity on that break. If we look at Netflix, it's a different scenario with a lower high and lower low. Google had the bear break as well. Apple had the bear break as well. It's trying to recover. And Facebook is also in a bit of a tightening range. So Amazon has the most clarity out of the major tech names, and it's certainly one to be watching. If we cannot break 1806, we'll just be looking for a lower high to form, and then we'll have to pull back and form a higher low compared to 1745. So for the financial sector has a 4-hour uptrend with higher lows and higher highs, but not a ton of follow through. So we did get to an area where I said, if we get up to the 2580s, we will be negating the possibility of that daily bear flag. And why I say that is because it's enough of a bounce that we can anticipate that even if we do top out, that the bulls will at least be able to hold a support test initially to try and form a daily higher low. The bear flags are when we get weak bounces into straight continuation for the bears to lower lows. And because we have this much space to work with, unless we're going to see a drop that's going to result in a pullback of a significant amount, trying to get my measurement tool here. So that drop would have to be over 3% without any bounce on the daily to just drop straight to lower lows. It's a possibility, but it's not the most likely scenario. So we're watching the 4-hour uptrend here as well. Anything above 25.35 keeps these 4-hour higher lows intact, and resistance is 25.88 and then 26 psychological. So worst case scenario for the bulls on Monday and Tuesday would be to see the tech sector reject and stay in its 4-hour tightening range and be unable to break resistance, and see the financial sector lose its 4-hour higher low pattern. That would be a red flag. If those things do not happen, if we see continuation from the financial sector, who opened strong on Friday and consolidated, but if we can get over 25.88 on Monday, that would be a solid sigh of relief for the bulls that the financial sector is recovering from that all-out dump that initiated before that FOMC decision. XBI has been one of the strongest sectors on this bounce, so we could see that starting about Wednesday with that strength comparative to the tech sector and financial sector. So we had our high, low of the pullback, lower high, higher low was 86.83, bull break on Friday. Look at the volume. Look at that second candlestick of volume. Very notable that volume is getting follow through for those bulls with a high volume bullish day. And we're still in a tightening daily range. You could call that a clear little bull break, and I wouldn't argue with you. But if you zoom out time frame and just look at a little bit more condensed, the 2-day chart, it is still in equilibrium. So high, low, lower high, higher low, and we have to break 92.91 and 92.99 for this continuation. Otherwise, we will stay in a tightening 2-day range, which is just a little bit more clear than it is on the daily at this point because of that little higher low and continuation move over the last 4 days. So the biotech sector has definitely helped SPY with its strong day on Friday. We didn't have a convincing strong day in the tech sector, and it looks like the biotech sector picked up the slack a little bit. So we'll see if the biotech sector is able to break 92.99. Certainly going to be required if the S&P 500 is going to have its sights set on that all-time high. And at this point, for the S&P 500 to lose its bullish narrative that it certainly is maintaining at this point, we have to break this low. This is our new daily higher low at this point, down at 27.85, and that is looking like a must hold in the short term to keep this bullish narrative. And we'll wrap it up here with VIX, because VIX has given back the vast majority of this move, but we're still going to be looking for 1240 for the bulls to hold that level, because it is still a tightening range here with the high, low of the pullback, lower high, and we are looking for a higher low compared to 1240. So that's a potential level to be watching. And we have seen some solid moves. When we pulled back this sharply last time around, we saw a significant bull move of almost 50% or so, about 45%. Now we pulled back significantly again. The last one lasted 6 days, actually really about 8 days before we got the significant follow through. This is day number 5 on this pullback. So again, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, keeping an eye on the volatility index, because if we do see the inability of the tech sector to get follow through, or if we see the financial sector lose its 4-hour uptrend, that will be a scenario where we might see a little bit of weakness in the S&P 500, which would lead to a bit of a bounce on the VIX here. So that's where we stand. Bulls followed through. They did what they needed to do, and just have to see the last remaining puzzle pieces to be confident with the QQQ bull break, the XLF continuation, and the biotech sector continue doing its thing, which it has been doing very well. And we'll check in on Monday to see if that QQQ bull break can get that follow through. I appreciate you watching. Hope you have a good rest of your weekend. We'll get into some commodities and some USMJ stocks here, and cryptocurrency heating up a little bit as well, as Bitcoin attempts to change the weekly trend for the first time since the all-time high insanity about a year plus ago, and still hasn't done so yet, but certainly keeping our attention out there for when that momentum does shift back to the bulls after such a long pullback. Thanks again. Have a great day. See you soon. So, Adventure Time, we've got Natural Bridges National Monument now. Pretty similar to Arches, but just a little bit different. And there's a nice little valley with trails and paths to walk through. So, another very picturesque spot with some very cool rock formations. And I actually ended up getting lost for the first time. I never really got lost. Definitely went the wrong way and had to backtrack sometimes, but I got lost, completely lost the trail here. And it was, well, these bugs are really cool. They're pretty much a mix between a giant moth and a hummingbird. And I couldn't figure out, is that a hummingbird or what is going on there? And I forget their specific name, but it is something that alludes to their similarity. But they were having a blast on these yellow flowers, getting their pollen and nectar. But ended up getting lost on this trail and stuck in a valley, essentially, in a canyon. So I had to scale the walls of the canyon to just get to the top and to be able to see things. And then ended up, I mean, by the time I had to go 6 miles out of the way and it was dusk, it wasn't the kind of thing where I was, fearing for my life. I pretty much knew worst case scenario, I'm going to be hungry and I'm going to have to sleep exposed out, in the open and deal with it tomorrow. But fortunately found my way out and ended my way back to the tent, exhausted, pretty much hiked twice as long as I was anticipating, but it was a good learning experience. So a really nice canyon walk, natural bridge. You can see where the name comes from. This is in Utah as well, Gooseneck State Park. Incredible river that, obviously has cut this path and just winds back and forth. And to just see time eroded like this, very cool. Another place where you want to time it right, because I got there too early and was dripping sweat, completely exposed, waiting for dusk. But another spot where you just put your tent right there. There's nobody else around. Maybe there was one other RV that was sitting up there. Not a ton to do, but if you can keep yourself entertained with a book or with some music or with some ganja, it's a pretty good spot. But a really interesting geological formation. That's how I entertain myself. A little bit of modern art, leaving my mark. And that's that. So, after Capitol Reef was heading down, where did we go next? I think we're coming close to the end of this trip. And then we'll see what am I going to talk about at the end of videos. We'll find something. So have a good Friday night. We'll be back tomorrow with USMJ eventually. Going to go to Smoky Mountain National Park again on the way home, which is actually where this road trip, Chapter 1, started. So all full circle. See you then.